easy.
Good afternoon and welcome to the August 23rd, 2016 meeting of the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust. First item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the July 26, 2016 Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust meeting.
I'll offer a motion to approve.
Second.
The motion is second. Any discussion? Please cast your votes. And it is approved. Next item on the agenda is to ratify the OCEDT claims.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Before we vote, Kathy, if you would just give our viewers a brief update on the Continental Resources claim.
Sure. Continental Resources is in contract year 5 of their agreement with the city, or with the Economic Development Trust. And this past year they received, and this claim, $1.8 million for an employment level of 457 jobs, which means that they've been maintaining their level of employment consistent with the prior year. So it's kind of a good news story when you look at what's been happening with some of the other oil and gas companies in Oklahoma City.
And the reason that they're incentivized, their headquarters was in another location.
Right.
And this incentive played a part in moving them to Oklahoma
Yes.
City.
Yeah. Their headquarters was in Enid, and we offered them an incentive package of $7.2 million to relocate their jobs and create several hundred new jobs here in Oklahoma City.
A follow-up question, and those jobs are certified as Oklahoma City-based employment?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. We had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And the claims are ratified. Next on our agenda are items needing individual consideration, and the first is a joint resolution between City of Oklahoma City, the Economic Development Trust, approving allocation of general obligation limited tax proceeds for the Health Smart Holdings project.
Yeah, Mike Ogan with the Chamber of Commerce is here to introduce the company and talk a little bit about the project.
Good afternoon. Michael Ogan with the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce. I'm here to introduce Eric Wright, who's with the company locally, to run through a little bit of background on what they're looking at doing. It's part of the normal discussion that we have companies provide you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Eric Wright. I'm very happy to be here and a part of this organization, and very thankful for the assistance we've had from all parties involved. Very briefly, I'd like to tell you a little bit about HealthSmart. We've been in business since 1967. We employ over 1,300 employees located in about 19 different locations around the United States. Oklahoma City is actually a nice size office for us. We currently employ about 100 people there. I believe the expectation is this venture that we're doing now will bring potentially up to 75 employees here locally. So very pleased about that. Currently, I got that right. Currently employing approximately 90 people in Oklahoma City, and additionally 75 to 150 employees that we expect in the next 12 to 24 months. So sorry to give you a shorter number than we actually anticipate. Average wages for these jobs should be about $57,000. We do have some leadership positions as well as very professional positions as well. I noticed that we included data, customer service management, IT, HR, and training. I believe we left off nursing. We will employ a few nurses as well for this project. About HealthSmart, we are a third-party administrator. So just like the city has a self-funded plan that you manage, you go out and you find a third party to manage that plan on behalf of your employees and their dependents. That's exactly what we do, but we're an independent company, not an insurance company. We also do clinics, on-site clinics for employers. We do managed care for employers. We also do what we're hired to do now for the state of Oklahoma is actually help them engage their network. As you know, as consumers of health care, there are different prices at different facilities, and sometimes the variance in those prices can be over 1,000% different. Well, our job is to advocate for the members of the state of Oklahoma and engage them and redirect them to lower cost facilities without depreciating the care that they receive. So we're very excited about that. A little bit about our types of business that we do. We have most of the major tribes here in Oklahoma, which we're very thankful for. We have 20 nationwide. We also do the health care benefits for 30 different healthcare systems and hospitals, 65 public sector companies, 84 student health plans for some very, very well-known colleges, and then a number, 400-plus ancillary type programs for flexible spending, HRAs, COBRA, stuff like that. And then just our typical commercial employer groups, we have over 550 of those clients throughout the United States. So summary about us, we're the largest independent TPA in the United States. We're very proud of that. 1,300 professional healthcare team members, over 100 nurses delivering clinically driven outcome results, 10 national and regional claims and customer service operations. I'm very proud to say that Oklahoma City will be our largest operation once we complete this venture. We partner with over 500 other healthcare benefit administrators and provide services to them, and we manage more than $7 billion in claims annually. Are there any questions?
I do have a question. Thank you for your continued interest in Oklahoma City. When did you first, or the company first, involve itself with a site in Oklahoma City?
In 2013, November 2013, we were actually, I know you, Mr. Roth, from your previous work with the county, and we were known then as Mutual Assurance Administrators, so we were actually acquired by HealthSmart in 2013.
Yes, it's all coming back. You have a great reputation from my recollection, so.
Thank you.
Nice to see you continue to do good work.
Thank you.
You were near North May and Mosteller at one point.
We're just west of the mall and before you get to Mercy.
Okay. And so since that time, HealthSmart Holdings has been located at Quail Springs Parkway?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's where this expansion is going to occur?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the economic impact that was suggested, that is a payroll number, I guess, the $39 million for a 3-year period?
I think that is, it includes, the economic impact is calculated from their capital investment, the wages, and the taxes paid by the employees.
Okay. All right. Great. No further questions other than, again, gratitude for the continued investment in Oklahoma City.
Thank you. We're excited about it.
Just where in Quail Springs Mall is the facility located?
Next to us, next to Jordan.
Oh,
Actually,
okay.
Yeah, you're right,
Yep.
next to us.
It's
West of the Quail Springs Mall.
right. It's not that building where the property's up for sale on the north side at the corner.
That's a sublease, and no, it's not.
Okay, I'm just curious.
It's freestanding
Yes.
right there at Quail Springs and Hertz Parkway, right?
That's correct. Yeah, right across from the AAA Service Center.
And just west of our building. I did have a follow-up question. What is your minimum number of employees that can be potential clients for you?
To self-fund, it's changed a lot over the years, mainly due to changes in the stop-loss environment, which help protect clients' risk. Our smallest client has 13 employees.
Okay, thank you.
I would move approval of the item as submitted.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And the recommendation, joint resolution, will be adopted. Moving on, next on our agenda is a TIF project dealing with Oklahoma County. Brent, are you going to brief us, Kathy?
Yep.
Okay.
Just a little bit, this is an allocation that was approved by the City Council and the TIF Review Committee earlier this year for capital improvements at a couple of county office buildings, or county buildings, not just office buildings. And Stacy Trumbo with the county is here to go over the project.
Trustees, I appreciate your time today. I'm the county engineer for Oklahoma County. Our projects aren't very exciting, but necessary for our buildings. This is a blow-up of the roof at the county annex, where most of the elected officials' office, and that's where citizens come to file their deeds or pay their fines, get their court records. You see the crack right down through the middle of the tar and gravel. That lets water into the building. This roof is about 26 years old and at end of life and needs to be replaced. Next slide. That's just an expansion of what you just saw. The dark areas is the areas that are really getting bad. We'll probably put more of a TPO roof on there instead of going back with tar and gravel. Seemed to last longer.
Stacy, what is a TPO roof?
Thermopoly, it's a new product that performs better than the tar and gravel. This is the sally port at the courthouse. This is where the sheriff brings the inmates into that sally port, straight to an elevator and up to the old jail while they're waiting to see a judge. We'll run 200 maybe inmates a day through there that are docketed, and it's a secure area for them to do that. That floor is in bad repair. We were instructed probably not to even put those sheriff's vans on it until we got it repaired. So they've been offloading them out in the alley, which is not as safe. Behind that information board is a elevator shaft. There's no elevator in that. We want to put an elevator in there, have a lot more traffic. Seems in the county buildings. Being a government building, I don't know if it's good that we have more business or not, but we do. So we're needing to expand our elevators. This is when you come into the annex. First thing you do is come to the security area. Many days you can see that people are backed up out into the street trying to get their jury duty or whatever they're there for. That's a bad location really for those screening areas. It blocks the hallway. We want to expand that area to the north so we have more stacking area for folks and maybe upgrade our ability to screen them come in with some new technology. The next project is the same building. There was uplighting on that building at one time. It hasn't worked, I know, in at least a decade. It's really kind of a nice looking building if those lights would work. It's pretty plain the way it sets right now. We intend to get those lights working again, plus seal the building so water doesn't infiltrate it on the sides. Next slide. This is the 9th floor of the courthouse. The original jail was the 9th, 10th, and 11th floors. We still use floor 11. That's where we hold the inmates while they're awaiting trial. 9 and 10, we don't use those floors anymore. So we would like to repurpose those floors for office space. And the first thing we're going to have to do is take all this steel and the old jail cells out and get an elevator that goes to that floor. Next slide. That's just another picture of that 9th floor where it used to be the original jail. It's quite an undertaking to demo that out. This is at the county jail itself. There's 2 roofs on that facility. There's an upper roof that was replaced about 8 years ago. The lower roof has never been replaced. It's 26 years old and at end of life. And you can see there's some of the flashings already blown away there in a windstorm. It's leaking pretty badly, causing some problems in some of the offices for the sheriff's staff. And those 8 projects that I just explained to you, that's the $3.4 million that we're asking for to do those very necessary projects. That's all I have. I'll answer any
Questions from Jim?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a few questions. This feels a bit like old home week, but it's great to see you again, Stacy. To Exhibit A and the priority, just a couple questions. So the outside of the annex office building currently has scaffolding and appears to have plywood around it. Is that associated with this priority 5?
It is not. That was associated with Project 180. Your contractor had a bad day and hit the front of our building. Hit it pretty hard, knocked some asbestos loose. What you're seeing out there is asbestos containment, so we could remove that. And we're in the process of putting the building back together right now.
Okay. And so this exterior maintenance is for other parts of the property?
That's for a different part.
Yeah, gotcha.
Building.
And the new front entrance and security, that is all within the north side of the building?
Yes.
Okay. The repurposed to office for the courthouse, is that for county function or for the courts?
About half and half. The courts have some needs for some new programs and would like to be in there, and then some county offices would like to expand in there as well. I think there's about 18,000 square feet, so there's room for both functions.
Okay. And I see that the municipal council's office has approved this and the DA's office has approved it, but I just wonder about the use of local TIF dollars for state purpose with the court functions associated with the build-out. I know that the county is responsible for providing space for the courts and the court fund is responsible for paying for that, but often the numbers don't match. And so it's just a question of, I guess, protocol to make sure that we're covered in the use of TIF dollars for the courts.
There's no legal prohibition for the TIF funds to be used on that county building. So,
Regardless of the purpose with the space.
regardless of the purpose of the space.
On the jail, there's currently a study underway that to look at the long-term way that criminal justice will be performed in Oklahoma City. The $400,000 that's being allocated for the jail, it's going to be needed no matter what conclusions the committee comes up with that are adopted?
I'm afraid so. We have several things going on down there that are end of life, 26 years of deferred maintenance. We're keeping that thing, I always say, together with baling wire and duct tape. I hate to spend money on a building I would like to tear down, but we can't seem to get support for any kind of a new facility, so we're going to have to continue in this facility. Even if you could get support for a new facility, you're probably 4 or 5 years away from occupying that new facility. So we've got to continue to operate down here for that period of time, and unfortunately money's going to have to be spent on that facility, more than even what's before you today.
Go ahead.
So the 400,000 is more than just for the lower roof?
No, that's just for the lower roof. I've got other projects if you'd like to fund them.
That's all, thank you.
Quick question in regards to the timeline. What is the timeline for priorities 1 through 8?
We think we can accomplish those in about a 5-year period.
Why so long?
Gets to the resources. The financial resources will be here if you approve this, but the ability for us to take on those projects and manage them and see them through are a little bit more than you can just do quickly, especially when we got to continue to operate.
Now,
We
in
can't
regards,
close those facilities. We have to build them under while we're operating. So some of those projects probably have to be done at night when the building's
Sure.
closed.
sure, in regards to inflation, so the amount that you all have requested, that does include inflation, correct? I mean, since it's over a 5-year period, costs change. So I'm a little bit surprised the 5-year mark, because 5 years from now, the total where it is 3.4 may end up being 5 million or 6 million. So, like I said, the timeline does cause a little bit concern, because I know eventually the price will change. So that's why I asked the question about inflation.
Right, I understand that, and we will go as quickly as we can for that very reason. But sometimes, actually, in this community, I've actually seen prices in different trades go down. It kind of peaks and valleys in this economy. So I've bid projects out and couldn't award them, and then 2 years later bid the same project and it fit the money. It's a timing cycle with what's all going on in the community.
Sure. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
To move approval?
Move approval of the memorandum.
I'll second.
Second. Please cast your votes. And it is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Next on the agenda is the Alliance for Economic Development of Oklahoma City fiscal year 15-16 and fourth quarter reports.
Now, in your packet today is the fourth quarter report for the Alliance for Economic Development and our financial statements. Just to kind of go over a few of the highlights of what we were working on last quarter, and some of these projects, obviously, we continue to work on today. A lot of time has been devoted to the MAPS 3 Convention Center and the Convention Center Hotel project. We've been leading the acquisition effort for the city on the property for the Convention Center. We've pretty much got that wrapped up. There's a few parcels that are still outstanding, but for the most part, they've all been acquired and closed on, and the city has possession of them. On the hotel, we've had some informal meetings with the developer teams that are interested in the 4 finalist developer teams that are interested in doing the hotel. We've requested additional information from those teams, and that has been provided back to the Alliance. We also began the process of site acquisition. The City Council approved the use of funding that was in the Oklahoma City Redevelopment Authority that had been accumulated from the operations of the Skirvin for use in support of the hotel project. So we will be using those funds to help acquire the site and pay the expenses associated with the development. On the job creation side, we were continuing to work with Boeing on their project at Southeast 59th and Air Depot. They had their grand opening of that building on July 15th, 2016. We're still involved in that project, trying to finalize some environmental remediation concerns on the property and get the final parking lots constructed. On GE Global Research, we continue to work on that project as well. The Redevelopment Authority received a grant from the Economic Development Administration to construct a streetscape on Northeast 10th Street and Stiles. So that project is pretty much wrapped up, and we'll be starting on, the Stiles piece is wrapped up, and we'll be starting on 10th Street shortly. I think everybody is well aware that that building is pretty much complete. GE is beginning to move into it, and I think they're planning a grand opening celebration in October. A BNSF Tinker project, if you recall, the city provided $23.5 million to acquire the BNSF rail yard near Tinker Air Force Base. We, through the Oklahoma Industries Authority, salvaged the rails on the site, and that operation was completed last quarter. On the redevelopment side, in Northeast Oklahoma City, we've been focused on the redevelopment of the historic Page Woodson School. That project is well underway. The school building is going to be reconstructed into 68 affordable housing units. There'll be a new building built just to the east of it that will also be affordable housing. And then the commercial space in the building, including the auditorium, has been leased to a new community development corporation that the Alliance has created called Progress OKC. So we will be overseeing the operations of the auditorium, and we have to provide that as a community service facility. So it will be available for performances and events to benefit the community where the school is located. We continue to work in the JFK area, which is the area east of the health center. We have a lot of single-family homes under development and continue to have a lot of interest in that. Northeast 36th and Kelly, the shopping center at that location is under renovation, and working with the Chamber of Commerce and other funders on the Innovation District. Just a few other things on the tax increment financing front. The policy document for the Coeur d'Alene TIF district was approved by City Council in July, so a little bit after the quarter, but that had been submitted to you and to the TIF Review Committee during the quarter. And then, again, we received a $4.5 million allocation from TIF 2 that was provided to Urban Renewal to acquire parcels on the east side of the convention center site in support of the development of the convention center. And that pretty much wraps it up. I've mentioned Progress OKC. Just a little bit more about that. We are, Progress OKC is a community development corporation. It's a 501c3 organization that whose mission is really aligned towards developing affordable housing and job creation opportunities in the low-income communities in Oklahoma City. We're working on developing information that we can provide to potential funders, whether those are foundations or federal grant opportunities, to help us carry out that mission. And some of it will really be focused on Paige Woodson School and the auditorium space and making sure that that space can be provided very inexpensively or free of charge to community groups. And then working with other nonprofits in the community to either develop affordable housing or to undertake other community projects. So just a little bit about that. That's pretty much my report. There's more detail in your packet, and I'd be glad to try to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kathy. Questions from the trustees?
I do have a question. On page 3 of the report under land use planning, can you remind me about the thoughts underway at Northeast 50th and Lincoln?
The Commissioner of Land Office has developed a plan for the redevelopment of a parcel of vacant land that's at Northeast 50th and Lincoln. It is a mixed-use development that has office and residential and retail. The Alliance has been asked to undertake the community engagement piece of that for CLO, and we have a contract with them to do that work to make sure that they reach out to all the neighborhoods that are impacted and coordinate with the school districts and the city departments and all the other kinds of stakeholders that'll be impacted by the development.
Okay, thank you. Just a general question. I'm hugely impressed always with the amount of work that you have underway and the geographic diversity of it, which I'm thankful for. But one of the items on today's agenda reminded me to ask the question, do our policies have the ability for the city to steer investment maybe through enhanced incentives to an area that you'd like to see, either greenfield or a reinvestment back into an area that struggled? I mean, obviously, Councilman Pettis has been successful in bringing attention to some areas that have been challenged in the past. Just curious in general, do we have that currently within our purview, and is that something that you would see value in trying to figure out a tiered approach perhaps?
And we do that quite a bit. I mean, obviously, if let's say a job creation prospect comes to us, and GE may be like the perfect example. GE comes to us, they want 5 or 6 different sites in Oklahoma City. If they decide to come to an area that's distressed and that has already been created as a TIF district, we have additional opportunities to provide them incentives in that location than we would somewhere else. And probably our first real success with that was the Dell Computers story, where they wanted to come in and redevelop a vacant Walmart, and we said, yeah, well, if you want to do that, that's great, but if you want to do something better, we've got this site down on the river. It used to be a landfill. We'll get it ready for you. And they said, okay, the original agreement contemplated about 2,500 jobs. I think they're at about 2,100 to 1,800 now. But, so we really do try to steer investment. And I think I met with Jennifer and somebody just a week ago or so and said, yeah, that's a great idea. But if if they really want additional incentives, maybe they should look at one of our TIF districts or Northeast Oklahoma City. We're really trying to drive things into the Northeast Renaissance area right now.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm thankful to hear that. Obviously, an expansion is tougher to ask them to pick up and move, but certainly a new location.
Right, a new location, definitely.
Thank you.
But while there is some connection between the distressed area and jobs, the general obligation limited tax bonds are mainly aimed at job creation, are they not? Whereas the TIF would be used for the redevelopment efforts.
Right. I mean, we can, We can look at a lower salary threshold in some of the enterprise areas and some other things, I think, is the way the policy is written, even on the job creation side. And we do have some flexibility there, but, I mean, TIF is really the best tool that we have to drive people into those more distressed areas.
Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion that the report be received. A motion and a second. Please cast your votes. And the report is received. Next on our agenda is the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust activity, fourth quarter and year. And
good afternoon, everyone. Kurt Foreman with the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber and Economic Development Foundation. Always good to be with you. I brought some of our team with us today. I thought that's important because it's not just me. There's a whole bunch of people that work on it, and even more than we brought today. But Jeff Seymour is one of our newer staff members on the recruitment side. Jeff's here. Jennifer Smith, who worked a lot on the Health Smart project. Jennifer's part of our business recruitment and expansion team. And Tammy Fate, who you've met before, is our retail recruiter. And then Mike Ogan, who you know as well. And I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but Mike's decided to retire from the chamber in the next month or so. So this may be one of Mike's last meetings. He's moving back to Oregon, where he spent many years, and we've been very appreciative of his efforts. And a lot of the results we have in our report come from Mike's leadership and his team. The past year has been a very interesting year. When you think back on sort of what's been going on in Oklahoma City for the last few years, maybe even a decade or so, we often probably get very spoiled with the great things that are going on, whether it's the investments we're making in ourselves through maps and other things, whether it's the kinds of stories that the Alliance shared in their report, or just the things that get brought to you periodically. But this year was more positive than negative, although it was a very different year. We didn't see any energy or aviation projects. Our Boeing projects actually were announced in the prior year, but took a while to come to fruition. But there are a lot of things that we've talked about before that are now reality, whether it's the BNSF yard being turned into the beginnings of a massive MRO facility. The rail's all gone. They had the groundbreaking. All that work is getting started, whether it's the GE facility that's beautiful and going to have its opening in a month or so. The Boeing facility is finished. We've had a lot of things that we've talked about and celebrated in the past come to fruition during the past year. The results are in here. I won't go through all the details, but we had a successful year in terms of total job numbers that we were against the metrics. We did see some difference in wages, but that was mainly because we had no energy or aviation jobs, which often are significantly, sometimes two times higher than our average wages. But we're still one of the only communities in the country since the recession that's seen a lot of significant increases in wages and things in our community. So we have a lot to build on. Again, like in past years, our existing business base was the hero of the story. They continued to make decisions to invest in our community. We may think that's common. It's not common. There are a lot of places where existing companies invest elsewhere. They don't necessarily invest in their own community. So we can take a lot of heart from that. We called on over 418 companies during the past year and assisted 160 of those with some service that they were asking for to help them, which is great. The jobs were over 2,800, so there's a lot there. The wages were down a little bit, as I mentioned earlier, but there were still strong opportunities in a lot of what I would call economic diversification opportunities, things that are not the sort of core parts of our economy, but were happening, and many of those have come before you, whether it's progression or national litigation, jobs that pay in the $40,000 to $50,000 range, and hundreds of those jobs, and great jobs for people to get to the next rung on the ladder. We still have a lot of people in our community that are at rungs on the ladder that we'd like to move them up to a different point in their lifestyle and their abilities. And so I think the work we've been doing really aids in that effort over time. One of the bright spots, and one that I would urge you to celebrate when you talk to people, because sometimes people think things are sort of gray right now, and I don't think they are, but for the last 4 months or so, 5 months, we've had the highest prospect activity we've had since we started tracking it. So back in 2013 when we started tracking it, and there's a graph in the report that we provided to you, we're at the highest levels of prospect activity that we've seen in the last 4 years. So we won't win every one of those, but the more baseballs that are thrown at us, the more chances we have to hit those balls. So we're very pleased with that. There's a lot of good work, collaboration going on, whether it's collaboration around the Innovation Center, collaboration with the Alliance and city planning and other things on employment land opportunities. There's just a lot of things going on that I would argue are really not common in most communities. A lot of communities are much more siloed than we are, and so I think the teams here work quite well together, and I think we're seeing the results of that. So I'll stop. You guys have had a lot of good questions today, so I'm guessing there might be some questions for me today too, but be assured we're on it. We have a lot of good things going on. We've got a lot of promise. We've got a great plan of engaging going forward. We had a fabulous ICSC, which happened in May. That's our retail show we go to with the city and on behalf of the city and with the city, and had great meetings. We were a little worried at one point that maybe people would say, oh, well, energy's down a little bit, so you guys must not be the hot market. But we really didn't get that kind of message from the people we visited with. We're still on their radar and still an important location for them. So I actually will stop now and see if you have any questions.
I do just have one question.
I thought you might. You're in a question mode today.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We blew past the time that I had predicted. I'm sorry. I take the blame. To drill down a little bit further on the prospect activity that you described, because in your report you talk about initial leads is less. So I was trying to understand, that's like a lot of first dates and we're not having second dates, or what is that?
Well, no, what happens, we've discovered that leads used to be a reliable measure of you'd see a lot of leads and then you'd have prospects from that. What we're finding, because I think some of it, and our team would probably agree, people do a lot more of their homework on their own these days, and so by the time they come to you, they've already done what we used to do for them initially to sort of do that. The first date's already happened and we didn't know it, whether they literally have come to see the market or they've at least done their homework online. So we tend to have more people step right up and say, I have a project I'd like to work with you, or we run across a project. So I wouldn't take that one as a bellwether of anything other than I think there's a change in the process of site selection that's continuing to happen. That's a little more under the water, if you will, that we aren't able to count those leads as well as we may have in the past.
Now, you mentioned that there was something in our report that would show that this is the highest activity in prospects that we...
It is. It's of the letter I inserted, the memo I inserted in the front of the report. I think it's page 3 of that.
Oh, okay.
It's the only graph. So
thank you.
It's on page 3. And the yellow line there is 2016. So we have more, and actually it's continued to stay up. We have 2 more months of that since this was prepared for you, because this was through the end of June. But July and August are continuing to track positively. So we have more prospects we're working on currently than in any time in the last 4 years. So
okay, then interpret for me from page 1 of your report, in the chart that you have there. In the bottom right, you show year-to-date 21 prospects, but the target for 2015...
Some prospects carry over. So we sometimes carry, for example, that may not be what you're asking about, but we sometimes carry a prospect for more than a given cycle. So during this past 12-month period, we generated 21 new prospects, but we've had some that we carried forward from beyond that. So we have some that may take, sometimes it takes 2 years plus to go all the way through the process with someone.
Because when I look at that figure and I see the 21, I go over to the left 2 columns and I see that the target was 25.
That was our target, right. So, I mean, that's what we're trying to get to. We work our best to get to that number. This is the first year in my time here where our number was a little bit down. But the number of projects we're working, It doesn't always, that's the real numbers, but sometimes it seems odd. Sometimes projects literally go on. I have one friend in economic development who had a project go on for 5 years before they finally made their decision and located in the community. Hurry up and wait is a common phrase we hear. Good questions.
Other comments or questions? Chair would entertain a motion to receive. A motion and a second. Please cast your votes. And it is received.
Thank you as always for your partnership.
All right, next up. Comments from staff. Any comments from trustees? Any citizens who wish to be heard? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you all for your participation.